Hey everyone, this is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube. Thank you for tuning in to Season 2. All episodes in this season were conducted virtually over the internet because of the coronavirus pandemic, so please excuse any audio glitches or oddities you may hear during these episodes. Thank you and enjoy.
Hello everyone, welcome back to your favorite podcast ever, Goddamn Gamecube. The best goddamn video game podcast there is.
Sound more enthused, right? We work hard on this, don't we?
Speak for yourself. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. No, it's funny because we're actually talking about like one of my favorite games of all time right now. We are continuing our Halo retrospective with Halo 2, and holy shit, boys, I could not be more elated to get into this because I've played this game more than almost any other, maybe more than any other. One of those games, it's the Majora's Mask, where the development was absolute misery, and in their misery and ambition, they created a near masterpiece. And I'm gonna stick to those words because it's one of those things where I don't think people have really absorbed how fucking good it is, like all the little things and the way they add up and all the successes. And it was originally meant to conclude the series, and if only, because it's all downhill from here. I just want to talk about what happened. Was you had all these little different cells of teams not talking to each other, and the director was burned out. He left to work on another project that didn't come to fruition. And so it was hellish. And the innovation that I speak of, especially with this game, is with respect to the matchmaking element and how hugely influential it was in console gaming. Literally, like, they were, for the cell that was working on the multiplayer element, I believe they were talking with Microsoft about Xbox Live and how they were going to make that a success. And literally what happened was some people at Microsoft were like, okay, so Halo came out in 2001, okay, get the sequel out for 2002. And they're like, that's impossible. Like, to improve the game to a point where, because Xbox Live, I believe, launched fall 2002. And the executives at Microsoft took a vote amongst the higher-ups whether or not to force Bungie to rush the game out in 2002. And I cannot imagine that timeline. I think someone like threatened to quit or something, and they bought them another couple of years. But in terms of matchmaking, I don't like it's incredible how so many games that I play now, probably mostly because of player base, but it's just not as, because so few games were doing what Halo 2 was doing at the time, where everyone who was playing on Xbox was playing Halo 2. So the matchmaking experience for me was super duper smooth in terms of finding people who are my same skill level and feeling like I had a fair shot. They had a significant cheating problem for the life of the game, I want to say, which significantly got better over time. But Nick, you played a lot of it, didn't you?
Not online, actually. Not for
Really?
most of its lifetime. I didn't have Xbox Live until I got a 360.
Right.
So I really came into the online for Halo with Halo 3. I did play online at a friend's house, or at friends' houses, so I had a little bit of experience with that. And of course, they would matchmake with my friends, some of whom were not as good as me, some were better. So I had an inconsistent experience. Sometimes I would get my ass handed to me. Sometimes I would find it was a good challenge, and sometimes I would just like wipe the floor with people. But I never had a significant encounter with like cheaters. I just remember the actual online experience being, nothing short of incredible, because I never played anything else online before that. But then when Xbox Live came around, I would play Raven Shield and or Rainbow Six 3 as it was known by itself on Xbox, and Halo 2, and then on 360 was really when I came into it. But yeah, Halo 2 was like nothing I'd ever experienced before, because I was like, I'm playing online on a console. This is incredible.
Extremely sort of cutting edge, and I think as a result of their ambition, they actually like it wasn't as they didn't get to implement all their intended feature. They were actually originally going to have a kind of a firefight or Warzone mode that they just didn't have time to implement. And it's still like, even going, because I have the Master Chief Collection on PC now, and going back and playing those, it's just like, for some reason this one feels so comfortable to me. I think in terms of the movement speed and the way the weapons work, I think it's still a joy to play this online. And I mean, it really can't be overstated how messy the development cycle was. What you saw as you were leading up to it, because I wasn't actually on board until Halo 2 came out. I caught up. I played Halo 1 first, and then Halo 2 shortly after it came out. But I remember looking back, everyone was really hyped about the famous E3 demo, which has features in it that still have yet to be implemented to this day, because it was all, we didn't know it at the time, obviously, but it was all very fudged. Like, they made it look like you could do all these things, and they only were able to implement some of them. In terms of the biggest new features of this game are the dual wielding, which is a significant number of weapons. You got a good chunk of them can be dual wielded. One held in each hand, and they have the kind of, it feels very like, in the same way that the vehicles felt unusually natural in the first game, this feels a lot more fluid than it should be. Because I remember when Call of Duty first started implementing the akimbo weapons, it felt very like, I'm picking up two weapons now, and like I'm putting them down at the same time. And this one, it feels like, oh, I can flip open, I can grab a plasma pistol, I can interchange, I can swap them out. It feels great.
Yeah, I remember like when, there are haters for everything, and I remember one of the things that, like, on the forums and stuff you would see, especially like the haters on Halo, would be like, oh, your game has dual wielding, as if that's like some big feature. Well, look at all these other shooters that have dual wielding, and it's like, yeah, but it's always the same gun. Like, you play like Red Faction 2, and you can dual wield the pistols or the submachine guns or whatever. This is like, it is built into the combat mechanics of the game. So it's like, now they can throw new challenges at you and new situations that they wouldn't do to you in Combat Evolved, because now they know it's like, hey, maybe instead of going into this room with a battle rifle and a shotgun, go in with a plasma pistol and a submachine gun, knock that dude's shields down, gun him down with the the SMG, and it's like, there's so many possibilities that opens up. One of the first things that you see at the end of Cairo Station, the first level, is, Cortana says there's a lot of elites, you might want to get creative, and it's like, you encounter elites that are dual wielding, so it's encouraging you, like, hey, pick up a different weapon, try something, and they try to get you to do that.
That is the one fatal flaw of the Anniversary remake, is that for some reason, because of the way the game is built, the enemies can't dual wield, which I guess modders are taking a crack at now.
I believe they actually patched it since then, because I was playing it last night, and I'm pretty sure an elite had 2 needlers.
Okay,
but,
well that's fair,
at first,
that's fantastic.
First it was broken. Yeah,
because that changes the enemies as well. If they have, they have double the capacity, it kind of like, I don't know, it just adds so many different factors.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to mention that was huge about that demo was the boarding, which is new too. I mean, it just makes the vehicles feel even more kind of, integrated, where you can board a ghost, just kick the driver off, or if it's a tank, you can jump on, you just punch the driver to death, or you throw a grenade in there. It just feels great.
And they could board you too, which adds an element of, anti-infantry. You have to think about it now. Because now it's not like, oh, screw him, whatever. It's like, no, that elite can rip me out of this thing. It's like, okay.
The Banshee just splattering people, and now you have to worry that someone can jump on and kick you out of it.
Yeah.
So those are the significant changes. There was obviously a lot more that they planned. I mean, the scale of that battle in that demo is absurd. And I think to this day they haven't yet implemented a jackal phalanx like they were trying to show off in that, and that was fucking cool. And they just have a big like shield wall, and they're just kind of just throw a grenade in there and kick their asses. Oh man, it's so awesome, and I loved the way the city was designed in that demo. They made it look like a big tree. And I'm like, just bring that back. Now that we have the money to create stuff like that, just start implementing some of these ideas that we couldn't at the time.
Yeah. I was so disappointed when that level wasn't in the game. I thought that E3 demo was going to come to full fruition and we'd experience it, firsthand.
Because brutes are in that demo too, and they're not in the city in the game. And they show them dropping down on you and kicking the guy out of the warthog and stuff. It's awesome.
And if I remember correctly, the original like Combat Evolved Covenant dropships are there as well.
Oh, the spirits.
So, yeah.
The superior.
Is that what they're called?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The forks. Yeah.
The spirits.
The forks?
Oh, the
Come
forks.
But I remember being blown away by the new ability to board vehicles and be boarded. Like, oh, that's going to be a fun mechanic. I can't wait to play around with that when the game comes out.
It's just that ambition. It's like they wanted to do so much, and they succeeded at so much.
Another thing from the demo too, minor like weapon thing, is the battle rifle in that demo is semi-automatic. It's not 3-round burst. Yeah. And they changed that to 3-round burst in the regular game, but then in Halo Reach they added the DMR, which is semi-automatic.
The battle rifle in that demo is like, it fucks. It's great.
Yeah, it does. I wish we got that battle rifle.
Yeah, because the DMR is cool, but it doesn't fire as fast, and it doesn't have that like. That's something that
sounds better. The battle rifle just has that like trail off after it. It's like boom, boom, but then it trails off. It's good.
I'm getting ahead of myself with the weapons, but I think the battle rifle is like the sound is the best in this game. It's like it's just such a bark. It's so fucking cool.
We're
playing with a Halo
the iconic weapon too, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like because now I feel like it kind of has now because like now all the standard multiplayer modes are like battle rifle and this, or that's like your standard loadout now. It's kind of become that.
That was like the standard, like your model when you're customizing your character. I think holds the battle rifle and stuff. Like that became the assault rifle because they removed the assault rifle in 2.
Right.
And it's funny because I play in an Arma group and we have a Halo mod that we play with, and the battle rifle is incredible in that. The sound and like you can switch it from semi-auto to 3-round burst, and it's my favorite weapon.
Yeah, I mean I think I remember in the making of because I watched all like the old like DVDs that came with the special edition and stuff, and they were talking about how I mentioned in our previous episode about the pistol, how overpowered it is, and it kind of behaves more like a rifle. And then in this game they they reshuffle the hierarchy so the battle rifle feels like battle rifle. The SMG is your kind of lower power close range weapon, and the pistol is more or less useless.
Yeah, it's like they really took those criticisms to heart. I mean, you didn't have to nerf it that much. Maybe just make it just a little worse.
Give it a little more get up and go. It does look really cool though. I'll give it.
It's only a good like execution weapon for like you take somebody's shields down and shoot them, or like the drones and stuff.
I remember it being a really good combo with the SMG. Like the SMG and the Magnum worked well together. The Magnum on its own, completely useless.
I will say the Halo 2 Anniversary, the Magnum sounds awesome.
Yeah, the sound design and cool. the sound design and the Anniversary Edition in general is like out of this world.
Yeah, I mean, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I do love the simplicity of the Halo 1 palette insofar as the weapons and vehicles, but I don't think I think the additions in this game don't crowd it too much. I think they're they're pretty. We're not getting into like Halo 4 or 5 yet, but I feel like at that point you have like 3 weapons that do the exact same thing, and I think they're differentiated enough in this game because you have, say, like the sniper rifle and the beam rifle. It's still a preferential kind of thing where you have a clip versus a battery that can overheat, and it's the same thing. It's just like they add a lot because you're spending a lot more time with the Covenant in this game. They add a lot to kind of give them more world building, and I think a lot of the new additions are great, very impactful. I mean, because you saw the sword it has a failsafe in Halo 1, so you can't use it. And the fuel rod is the same thing, and now those are both in this game, and they add a lot to just kind of the sandbox and the way that people play the game and play around with it. The Wraith you can drive now, the Gauss Warthog.
And they also fill out lore-wise and sort of like world-wise the repertoire of these forces in a believable way, to where, like, you think about, like, in real life, like the military, they don't just have a Humvee with a 50 cal. They have, like, tow missiles, they got grenade launchers, like, so you're going to see different variations of the same vehicle or whatever. So, like, when you see slight variations like the Gauss Hog or, the transport ones they added later, like, it builds that world out in a meaningful way while also giving you meaningful gameplay changes.
I think it did a great job of incorporating these new sandbox elements without making the game feel too convoluted. I also loved how, now you have, for every human weapon, there's a Covenant equivalent, basically.
Yes. No, yeah, and that not only the weapons, but there's little things, because we're not the gameplay doesn't get to, well, actually. Good point to bring up is that there is no health meter in, moving forward. I think besides Reach and ODST, actually, this game, all you have is your shields, and just kind of a non-delineated amount of hits that you can take after your shield pops.
So there actually is a hidden health meter. There's mods that actually display it, so there is technically an indicator. It's just dummied out. But it's not nearly as you're not nearly as durable in this one as you are in the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is.
Yeah, I didn't know how to feel about that at first. Like there were a lot of aspects to that game that were like really iffy to me at first. I'll be honest. When I first played it, I didn't like it just because I was so accustomed to the first game. Like that game was just my perfect, like, everything you would possibly ever need in a game. And then Halo 2 comes out and it's just so different. And it took me. It took some time to grow on me,
Yeah, well, wait till the end of this podcast, and you'll come out a new man.
Well, no, I mean, I've seen the light now, of course, especially now with the anniversary edition, which pretty much took everything I still didn't like about the original and, like, fixed it or improved it for me.
I've come around a lot on Halo 2. It originally, actually, I had it below 3 in terms of, like, a lot of the gameplay stuff, just like how it felt, especially on higher difficulties. But I mean, over the years, I've come around hard on it. It's
well, we all know the legendary difficulty on this game is broken.
Oh my god,
it's stupid. Like, the last time I tried it, I stuck an elite with a plasma grenade and he lived.
Yeah. That shouldn't happen.
And, like, the Marines take more bullets than you do. It's stupid.
That's the dumbest thing. That's why I will never play these games on Legendary except for the first one. Really,
it's like harder than it would be in real life.
Yeah,
like the point of having,
I'm supposed to be a super soldier. Why are these guys doing better than
exactly.
I?
Well, because I think, like, the point of, like, having, like, that tier of difficulty in a game is you want to make it as hard as it would be, like, for real.
Yeah,
sure.
I've heard Bungie say
the canon difficulty.
I was just gonna say I've heard Bungie say that heroic is the canon difficulty.
Yeah,
but even heroic in Halo 2 is a little much.
Yeah,
I think it's
manageable from a gameplay perspective, but when I look at it from, like, a lore perspective, I'm like, are they really this squishy?
I think Halo 1 is the only one that, like, nailed the legendary difficulty. Halo 2 and beyond, it's just, like, it's not even fun, especially with co-op, where when one person dies, you both have to start over. But, like, it was such a fun mechanic to manipulate in the first game, and the third one onward,
like, wait for everybody to respawn.
Yeah, like, you could you would take turns, like, charging into a room and just mowing down as many enemies as you can before dying. And then when you do die, all your friend has to do is just move as far back enough as he needs to before you respawn. And then it's his turn. He goes in, kamikazes himself, and the cycle continues until all the enemies are dead, and you both
That's how they
can,
do it in the real military, I've heard.
can have died. Oh yeah,
We
and they
always
both
just tried to.
and you both can have died as many times as need be.
That's
Great.
where it's so easy.
I know. It's so
yeah, so
easy.
So I just want to for the audience who doesn't know what we're talking about. You in this game, they're a lot more tucked away. You find these little skulls that you can pick up, and they change the game in fundamental ways. Most famously is the one where you shoot a grunt, and a bunch of confetti pops out, and you hear "Yay!"
Yeah.
It's like it's delightful.
I was
It's
playing
very-
it last night. I was on the bridge in Metropolis with the Scorpion. When you get to
Yeah.
the tunnel at the end, there's an elite running away, and I went to shoot him with the main gun. And I fired, but a grunt ran out, and it auto-targeted his head. So I heard, boom! Yay!
Yeah, it's
Oh.
I can only have that skull on if I'm playing co-op or if I'm just like diving into a level like not part of a straight playthrough of the game.
Yeah,
'Cause,
we're not going for
it's
immersion with the grunt birthday.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. It's very immersion breaking.
Yeah, but, I mean that's a fact. I mean simple things too, like that in ordinary encounters that kind of change the way the game plays. Like this is the introduction of the sniper towers that they set up. The fusion cores, like explosives on the map, were not a thing before now. And the Pelican weapon drops, which are they come and go in the series, but they're a welcome inclusion here because
They're
I was
great.
telling Greg we were playing one of the more recent games, and that's a great way if you're exploring like an alien environment, and most of the time you're kind of like picking up weapons, like alien weapons. It's a great way to re-inject the human, like, you know, if you're not gonna find dead Marines, it's a great way. Oh well, I got your sniper rifle here or whatever, rocket launcher. They can just drop it off, and I don't know why they don't use it more frequently as the series went on, but that was pretty cool.
No, they would rather just slaughter innocent red shirts that somehow were here before you, even though you're
Yeah.
the first team there.
They
What?
sent them in first. First boots on the ground.
We need you to go in and die so Master Chief can pick up your gun later. What?
Trust me, it's all part of the plan. Yeah. No, and they add a lot of new enemies, some new Covenant races. We have the drones, which are the flying bugs that are
The most annoying enemy in all of
hate
Halo.
those so much.
They're
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I've never had fun fighting them. You know.
I do, just in the sense that they're not like the Prometheans, but we'll get to that later.
Oh boy.
The Bionicles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The orange bionicles. No, the drones are cool just from a, just to shake things up perspective. I like when they come over the rooftops and everything.
Yeah. I like when they ambush you in the tunnel, like when because they know you're going to take that jump in the Warthog or the Ghost.
Yeah.
And then right as you get to it, they're like, ah!
Yeah. They can
Yeah.
rip you out of your
They can
seat.
hijack you, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, they can. I never knew
Well,
that.
they can jump on and like punch you or whatever.
They can't
like,
drive it.
They can't drive the
That would be a
Ghost.
sight. The bug can't drive a car.
They probably could though. They got like 4 arms or 6 arms. They could probably do it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so them and the introduction, and I would argue the best appearance of the brutes is in this game.
Yes.
The enormous gorilla-like creatures. They're terrific. They really shake up the
Return to
gameplay. They're just completely unrestrained in this game. Very, very, like, if you kill a certain amount of them, like if there's only one left, they'll just go berserk and just keep hitting you until one of you dies.
Yeah, they don't berserk that way in the later games, do they? I think
They do a sumo stance and they're like, I'm gonna get you.
I actually watched a video. There's this channel, I think it's Slipspace Entertainment or something.
Yeah,
There was some channel, they do a bunch of like Halo 1 enemy type, like they'll take all the elites from across the franchise or all the brutes and
they
put them in a thing
against
and make
each
them
other?
fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the Halo 2 brutes, I believe, like were just like destroying the others because their aggression is so much higher
Oh yeah.
than the
they're-
others.
They're scary.
Because
What?
they had
Yeah,
to make them behave more like elites later on because they replaced the elites. So
yeah,
it was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Right.
I think that's something that they should really try to kind of like. they showed that, not to get too far ahead, but in the trailer for Infinite is kind of still, the Craig means aside, I think they're still leaning a little bit too much towards, because now elites are enemies again.
Yeah.
I think the brutes should have a little bit more of a bestial nature to them. Like their armor should just be like hanging off them awkwardly, and
they should
just barely
reoccupy
putting
their
up with
niche, kind of put them back where they were. Because
Yeah,
I love the
I think-
dynamic in this.
Yeah, I think they work really well, and lore-wise and briefly gameplay-wise, we have the Prophets who are at the head of the whole organization. It's kind of a good start that never went anywhere. Is the concept of boss fights in this game, and I think that one is very fun. I think the others mixed results. I just wish they had. Moving forward, I think boss fights in Halo are cool, but they really need to plan them out, because essentially you have 3 boss fights. One of them is with the heretic leader, and it's basically, we talked about earlier with the dual wielding. He dual wields plasma rifles, and he has a couple like clones. You can fly around, and it's pretty challenging if they're dual wielding, but if they're not, it's a joke. And you fight the Prophet somewhere in the game, and you just punch him in the face. You have to deal with his honor guards, which is awesome. And the last boss is like, mixed results. It's like, it's kind of cool, but it's still kind of derpy. And it's something that I appreciated that they tried to include in this game, but it's kind of just like missing something. You can tell it's just kind of an awkward first attempt at it.
Well, because you always have to wait for Miranda to take his shields down, and if you're not like Johnson. Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. My apologies.
It's just kind of like, how do we add a layer of where he's not just a bullet sponge, just kind of making him a little bit more of an interesting enemy. And I think you don't really, well, you get the ODSTs in this game. The first appearance of the ODSTs.
Oh yeah, Delta Halo.
Those guys. The visuals of the original have not aged great. It's a very 2004 looking game. When you compare it to Half-Life 2, it doesn't look great. The source engine is incredible, so let's not compare.
Yeah, that was like one of the that was the first thing that sort of set me off about the game when I first played it. But it was during cutscenes where you would see like layers of the background like render in real time.
There's a lot of pop-in.
Yes, right.
Pop-in textures.
Which is why I would say I almost want to say Halo 1 looked better. I don't know, just something about the Halo 2 like textures or the aesthetic of it. I don't know, just something about it didn't sit right with me. I mean, of course, like I said, over time, the more I played it, the more I came to love that game. And then again with the remastered edition, it's just so immaculate the way they were able to just take all the imperfect elements of the way Halo 2 looked and just
the goofy cutscenes are now super fluid, and they don't look, there's that really funny shot of Miranda Keys running at the camera, which is no longer a problem. Basically taking something that I was already very fond of and sort of perfecting it. I think they did a lot better with this game than Halo 1. Everything looks like very kind of built from the ground up. It doesn't look like they're porting assets from other games or anything.
It makes all the Covenant stuff look incredible, like all the high chariot and everything.
Yeah.
Like
my favorite like among the things that they fixed was the scene in what's like the level after what's the second Arbiter level?
The Oracle.
Right. So the one where you cut the cable and the station's in free fall. So you remember the scene where Arbiter crashes his Banshee like below the ledge, and they do like a Halo 1 parallel where right after that you see Master Chief climb on top of the ledge, and he's fine. So in the original Halo 2, it just looks so awkward. Yeah, burpy. It was so frustrating to me because I I knew what they were going for. If only they just made it look more the way it did in the first game. And then, of course, 343 was smart enough to go ahead and do that. It's like everything. It's like every single thing I used to not like about Halo 2, that remastered version fixed. I gotta hand it to 343 with that one. I mean, I know they get a lot of hate, but I think they absolutely nailed Halo 2 Anniversary.
Oh yeah, 2
Down
Anniversary.
to the last
I would
detail.
agree. The only things I don't like is the 2 songs they replaced. The Incubus one.
The
And
Incubus one in particular was phenomenal. Like it's perfect.
I'm 50-50 with you on that. So the Incubus one, whenever I'm at that part of the game, I always hit the back button. So that's
old graphics.
right, exactly. But I never liked the Breaking Benjamin song. I'm sorry. I know you just made a face.
Metal face.
But like, I kind of did, but I did. It just didn't feel fitting to me at that point in the game. So
It's very of its time.
But I actually prefer.
Timeless, though.
Exactly. But I prefer the new prog metal.
See, I don't like either of those. I don't think prog metal when I think Halo. Like, I know the argument too is like I don't think Breaking Benjamin either, but it's like I don't know. It feels like I'm playing Doom or something. I'm like I don't.
Yeah, a little bit.
I know I do love Misha Mansour though. Yeah.
Sure.
Great prog guitarist.
I mean,
the actual music is good. I'm just like, this is not Halo. I don't want this.
Breaking the Covenant. That's the song.
Yeah.
I think it slaps.
Good time to bring up that the soundtrack for this game is it's another winner. It's Marty reinvents a lot of the themes from Halo 1, and he introduces a good solid amount of new ones. I think from here on out, there's not as much new, like, catchy themes per game. Like, he adds a lot of, like, really good ones that just come to mind here for different kind of representing different aspects of the universe. And as you get to know the Covenant a little bit more, a lot of great motifs that kind of feel like the Incubus song we were talking about feels weird and alien. Like it's not like cringy. It's like kind of strange. And I think he collaborated with them to kind of produce that.
That like horn section that plays, like that motif whenever it's in High Charity, like that do.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I love that.
And the reverse.
And I mentioned last
vocals,
episode, and
yeah.
Amberclad makes me tear up every time.
Yeah, the Halo 2 soundtrack is definitely like of the original trilogy. That one is the closest to my heart for sure. It's the one I listened to the most.
Amberclad, Bon Iver rips off that song. I just want to put it out there on the podcast. I'll
What?
die on this
Wait a
hill.
minute.
How dare she?
Hold on. There's a Bastille song that totally rips off the main Halo theme that we all love so much.
Oh really?
Like, what is it? Is it Icarus? I forget what song it is. It literally sounds like he's humming the Halo Gregorian chant in the beginning of the song. And I keep tweeting at Dan in Bastille. I keep tweeting at him that I know you copied it.
You're probably the only person who still does.
want him to admit it.
Is this like your feud with that GameSpot guy?
The guy who reviewed Fire Emblem poorly on the Wii, and I shit on him every year. And like on the anniversary of his review, I always add him on Twitter.
Or
not do that.
Or Beppe's recent feud with the guy from Grandma's Boy.
Yeah,
That was
We
great.
don't need to get into that.
Incredible.
wait
yeah,
a minute. Now I need to talk about something because we're talking about the sound design of Halo 2.
Yeah.
And there is a problem with Halo 2 Anniversary that drives me crazy. Beppe, I don't know if you're going to foresee what I'm about to talk about. Because I just played these games for the first time, and it like borderline offended me that this game and many of the games in this franchise, almost all of them, are not fully subtitled. In Halo 2, even the Anniversary, there are several moments in the game where you're walking around the level and a Marine goes, "Chief, go here," blah, 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 military speak. Wait, where do I have to go? It's not subtitled. And if I was far away from him or I'm not facing him, you can't make it out. And so when I'm playing this game for the first time, it borderline blew me away and like offended me, where I'm like, even if it's not in the original game, how did they not fix this? Where like if you're hearing impaired, you would have no idea where to go. Like you would have to guess.
Yeah.
And that like especially what's like I think it's the second or third mission where you're in the city. Is it the second mission?
Outskirts of Metropolis.
Yeah. And there are so many moments like when you're battling around the city and when different enemies come out, you're told where to go and what to do, and I had no idea what was happening. Yeah. And that really bothered me. And we'll get into other games and other episodes. They never fix it in any of the re-releases.
Halo 1 Anniversary was the only one I saw subtitles in.
Exactly. Dude, it's
until
like
5.
How could you not do that? Like that drove me crazy. I just want to put that out there before we go beyond audio. It drove me nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, those outskirts in Metropolis, I thought were pretty linear. I mean, even if they're, even if you like couldn't hear who was telling you where to go. I mean,
what I also want to say is like I don't know about you guys, but I play every game fully subtitled, and like I want to know what like every minor character is saying all the time, and like and when I'm. I was playing Halo for the first time, and I want to know every character, who's saying what and what's going on. I shouldn't even say it prevented me from beating the game. I beat the game just fine, but I had a hard time getting into all the little dialogue and all the characters because I'm like, I can't read it. And I almost feel like maybe it's what's the right word? It's become a handicap for me, but where I want to read it all the time. And it bothered me in terms of getting into the story of these games that I couldn't read it. And I'll end it there. But this rant for me is going to continue in like all of these episodes. And it kind of started with Halo 2.
Especially because this game has such an excellent script and so many like funny one-liners too, that if you miss it, it's like the moment's gone. But that is a great point. I think that the overall sound direction, that aside, is really formidable. I think it was pretty technically impressive at the time, because this came out literally like a year before the 360, which is huge. Because I tend not to conflate the time periods of them. I think I have that right. 360 was 2005, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy. So tail end of the life cycle. And there's a lot of technical stuff. The fucking rocket launcher sound is great in this game. When you lock on,
it's like growls.
I was sitting in like my friend's basement when I was growing up playing this game, and it's like a rocket match, and it's just like surround sound, just fucking rad.
Don't forget the Hunter fuel rod cannon. The sound that those. Yeah.
It's like, what's that sound? I had like a whole like episode a couple months ago.
It just makes me so happy hearing it.
They just have like fuel rods in the previous game, and this one they have some kind of beam weapon, and it sounds like an animal of some kind. I don't know what they're going for, but it's so weird, and I love it.
It's so weird and perfect.
Yep. Just a lot of that. The carbine sound is unbelievable.
I love the carbine sound.
Yeah.
And I mean, I already said that's my favorite weapon in the franchise, but like I love everything about that gun. But I love the operation of it. I love you can see the little like paddle on this, like the little operating lever or whatever, like moving when you shout it. You can see, like the cell pops out and it's like all like steaming with like the radiation and shit. It's so cool.
It's sick. And the notable improvement in this game, huge voice cast, because you have a lot of new characters, you have a lot of interaction between them as the story unfolds, a lot of just perfect casting, a lot of nice little cameos, notably the new character, the new protagonist is the Arbiter, voiced by Keith David, Dexter's wife playing Miranda Keyes. Julie Benz. She's great. She's so much better than the one in Halo 3 because she perfectly captures that bored. The banter isn't always exciting. You're not always screaming, when you're going into these sorts of things. And she just kind of has I'll meet you at the LZ, Chief. Just like very natural, very kind of
That's
detached.
what I like about this too, is that like they don't make all of the Marines and like military people crazy screamers, just Johnson, and that's all you need. Like he stands out, everybody else is like very kind of dignified and doing their job and everything.
Yeah, you do have some nice cameos on this one though. You have David Cross
Yep.
Voices
Oh,
of
man.
Marine. He's terrific, and of course Michelle Rodriguez, everyone's favorite Marine character.
The opening cutscene of Metropolis is like iconic.
Oh
Where
yeah.
she's like, it blew right through us, 50 cals, rockets, didn't do anything, and then
Didn't do a
David Cross
thing.
is just flipping
And-
out.
And that's the one. That's
Me
the
too,
scene.
sir.
Yeah, that's the scene when you get the alternate Sergeant Johnson speeches on
Basic
like
difficulties.
based on difficulty. Yeah, so like the in the first game, it's just the opening cutscene, but right, exactly. Damn right I am. Move
Back
on.
in my day,
His lines in this game
they would
are
give us
so
2 sticks and a
fucking
rock.
good.
Yes.
Share the rock.
Yeah, that.
We had to share the rock.
Absolutely absurd.
One of my favorite Halo characters undersung is the Spec Ops commander.
He's
the
awesome.
Shipmaster, Robert Davi, fucking 80s villain extraordinaire. He was in like
from,
Stargate Atlantis. He's a great
License to Kill.
License to Kill. Yeah, he's a great villain actor, but he plays a kind of
He's
a good
great
guy
in
in this
this.
because he's your buddy.
Yeah,
Mm.
he's got half his
Their
face
lives
blown
matter
off.
to
It's
me,
sick.
hostess not.
Yeah, great cast of characters that really kind of make the world feel a little bit more content. Oh, how could we forget Ron Perlman?
Miguel Ferrer is the
Him too.
Heretic
Jesus Christ.
commander.
There's
Yeah.
so many of them.
Yeah.
It's all great.
Dude, they pulled out the whole Rolodex for this one, dude.
Yeah, man.
Everyone. Well, that's something that we can kind of make a point of this segment is that they really wanted this, and the kind of the media fervor was kind of building up that this was going to be a blockbuster.
Ron
of
Perlman
a
and
game.
Hood. Sorry.
Yeah, and they really, I remember even not knowing at the time much about the series, that like everyone was talking about the release of this game. It was huge, just probably because of the Microsoft association. It got a lot of coverage.
I have a vivid memory of standing in a Best Buy when we were getting a new TV. My dad was talking to the sales associate trying to figure out which one to get, and on a bunch of the TVs, like one of those like marketing banks, they just had like a running little loop, like 30-second teaser for Halo 2.
Yeah,
And this was the point where I was obsessed with Halo, so I was just standing there staring at it for like 10 minutes.
Dad, I want that one.
yeah. I guess I think before we get into the story, I would like to. I think maybe I'm kind of in two minds about this insofar as the anniversary, because we're talking about the sound direction of the guns and everything. Maybe one of the only things that I think they did a little too much with in the remaster is when they do the cutscenes, everything is like turned up to 11. And it's awesome, but it's like it's really a matter. I'm like, I ask me like every other day and I'll have a different answer about whether I think it's too much. But like when the Arbiter is in a gunfight with the Heretic leader, it's just like blowing out your speakers. It's like really over the top, and I mean it's awesome, but it may be too much at points.
I never thought it was anything too overwhelming. But what I will say about the updated cutscenes is I kind of like how they would change the pacing of some of the dialogue.
Yep.
Like yes, they would just sort of just nudge certain lines like closer to other lines, so it would sound like
Further away.
or yeah,
Make them more organic.
Yeah.
Conversationally. Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's cool. When I played it for the first time.
Because I believe, what is that studio that did it? Blur.
Yeah, I think it was Blur.
They did the cutscenes. They've done a couple. They've been working on, I think, Halo Wars before. Did an exceptional job. Just another huge level of detail. So basically, I think Greg said it best. Where
Wait, be careful. What did I? Oh God, what did I say?
when we got to the end of the series, Greg said that the story of Halo 2 is the only one worth talking about.
Yeah, sort of, right?
So we're gonna get into it here. I think so much about this is just how you do a sequel, like textbook. How you basically the structure of this game. It kind of, a lot of people were bothered by this, but I thought it was really cool that they thought the entire game was going to be on Earth. I actually like how much it expands beyond that because there's so many different moving pieces in this game compared to the first one without feeling overwhelming. I was looking back. I read a review from Edge, the publication. I don't even know if they're still around. They were like, "Yeah, I don't get this game. It's like it's full of like Star Wars Episode 2 politics." I'm like, dude, that's insulting.
Not really.
It's like way easier to follow than that.
So much easier to follow.
You just learn more about the Covenant, basically, which is cool as fuck. Like, 12-year-old me was pissed because I'm like, I'm not playing as Master Chief.
Right.
But, like, once
up.
like, as soon as I got to, like, 14, 15, I was like, no, this is cool as hell, man. We're learning about the Covenant, and it's expanding the lore of the universe.
Let me find his Twitter handle, dude. Let me go dump on him.
Just bully him once a year.
Like 18 years later, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah. So the decision to make the elite speak English when they didn't in the first game, that one it struck me as a little odd at first.
Well, I think it's
the thing
translation
is,
convention.
That's artistic license. Like, I mean, like that physically, it would be like impossible for that alien species to move their little mandibles together to make English words.
I mean, did you guys play Metro in Russian? I didn't.
But I actually did.
Broken.
I know
They're
you
not
did. You
speaking
fucking
English.
crazy man.
But in the following game, Chief and him, well, they don't very much, but they can talk to each other and understand each other.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even though Chief only says one word to him that whole game.
Not to get too deep into it, but like, if you watch like Hunt for Red October, it's understood that when the Russians are all speaking English on the sub, they're speaking Russian, but it's for our benefit. So I think when the Covenant are all speaking to each other, it's either like a common language or it's like they're all speaking Sangheili or whatever.
Right.
And then when the humans get together, maybe they got translator microbes or something. I don't know.
Isn't that in the lore of either? I don't think it's Halo. Isn't that in the lore of? I don't know if it's Mass Effect. I forget. There's literally an NPC who says your suit will translate their languages for you.
In Mass Effect, at least, there is lore that, like, when you... Basically, like, when humans joined the galactic civilization, of, for example, like, basically you get either, like, some kind of injection or, like, an implant, or it's just, like, your suit that translates all known languages to whatever you choose.
Yeah, I could be misremembering. I thought maybe that was Halo. It could be Mass Effect. But anyway...
That's probably the reason in the universe either way.
Yeah.
But in Halo 1, though, the grunts spoke English while the elites did not. So I don't really think...
that was also for our benefit.
I mean, 2001 was a weird year. Like, people were still buying CDs and shit. So, I mean, like, I don't know how much you want from these guys. They revolutionized fucking FPS, all right?
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah, it's
some little contrivances here and there.
Yeah, it's a moot point.
They achieved. I wanted to talk about the opening cutscene is spectacular because something that I didn't appreciate is that everything that happens in this game is because of what you did in Halo 1. Because the Supreme Commander who is in charge in the last game is on trial for failing. He's on trial. Everyone's accusing him of being a heretic and all this different stuff. And he essentially you're seeing it from their eyes for the first time, and for its time, not a lot of people talk about it, but it's very cinematic. The way the camera kind of like lowers into the council chamber and pans in, and like 2004, not a lot of people were doing that.
Yeah, it really gives you the scale of like the council chambers and stuff.
Yeah, and how big the Covenant, because then they take him out on the balcony and you see just how big their city is. You finally get to see where they live and basically how they exist, operate of being cannon fodder for the Master Chief. And you're kind of like, at first, I'm assuming a lot of people are just kind of like, why am I seeing all this? And then you cut back you cut back and forth between that and Master Chief being rewarded back on Earth for his victory. And it's a nice little like start to just kind of the dichotomy between the two protagonists. And as you're getting into because you start off on Cairo Station, which is it's a space station built to house what they in the universe call a MAC gun, magnetic accelerator cannon, and they basically just use these as sort of point defense for their planets to defend them from the incoming capital ships. And Earth is about to be invaded by a small force that in the game is explained I think there's a different one in the books, but in the game it's explained that they weren't expecting humans to be on Earth because they had other plans for it. It's basically the opening of the first game on steroids. Like, there's so much more going on character-wise, and there's a lot. This is something that kind of sets the standard for the game, where there's a ton of stuff going on in the background of the actual like skybox, like and you're watching the boarding craft zoom in and board your ship, and you're watching the Mac cannon go off in the background. You're watching the Covenant carriers fly by. Everything about it is the scale is so much bigger, and within a couple of years' time, and you have to think about how they planned for this game to be even bigger than it was, and that's insane, because it's one of the longest ones, if not the longest one. And that just keeps ratcheting up. You have the incredible cutscene, because they were initially going to have you on board one of the Covenant ships. They're like, we don't have time for that, so they invented that incredible cutscene where you ride the bomb out and you fucking blow it up inside the ship. It's
iconic.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. It's like, for some reason, like, I could see people being put off by that because you don't do anything like that crazy in the first game, but it's such a great way to just set this, like, we're here to fuck. like this is Halo 2. Let's go.
Because like he doesn't do anything super outlandish aside from that one thing. Like, it would be worse if if they did some Halo 5 opening cutscene bullshit where it's like,
oh my god,
he's like surfing down the side of the cruiser, like one-handing an SMG, killing a bunch of people, and like, no, he just, like, two long swords fly by, blast a hole in the ship for him, he flies in, reactivates the bomb, and kicks out back into space, and then crashes into an amber cloud.
That was so cool.
It's not like a super graceful thing, like, it's very dirty, and that's what's so fucking cool about it, is he just thought, like, yeah, you know what, I'll go throw this bomb at their ship.
I'll do it, I don't give a fuck, I'll do it.
I don't give a fuck.
Like, the way it all plays out, man, it's just like such an unlikely string of coincidences. That, like, the fact that an amber cloud would be right there as he finishes, like, kicking the bomb into the ship.
I always thought about it that, like, Cortana coordinated with the longsword fighters and with an amber.
Oh yeah, probably.
Like, here's a solution for her to.
Ear.
Yeah.
But they
I just love the music in that scene. And, like,
oh, it's perfect.
I get chills every time I see
I think that's my favorite version of the Halo chant is in Halo 2. Even though it doesn't, like, resolve, it's like it's very ethereal and mysterious. And they set up the. I think the battle on Earth is really well done. I think those levels are really terrific. They feel very well designed, but also very kind of realistic and believable in that they kind of lament that there's no civilians. They all cleared out of there. But there's only so much you can do.
Well, I think that actually brings me to something. So the Halo 2 rebalance mod, the rubies that I keep mentioning over and over,
right.
He does one for each game in the MCC as it's been coming out. I think so. I think the reason that you don't fight humans as the Arbiter is because I think the game would get refused certain classification or, like, certain things in certain countries because you're killing humans.
Right.
But since the object of the game is not to kill humans, I think they can get a pass, even though you can technically kill the Marines. I think, like, if there were civilians, that might cross some kind of line too. It's also hard to put in there, but, like, if there are civilians, you could very easily kill them in the crossfire or something, or, like, you'll see aliens killing them or whatever, and, like, that might not jive with them.
Yeah,
but
we do get that eventually in future games, but I'm assuming, times change, they probably loosened up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, also, I wanted to mention really quick, since I brought that mod up before we continue, that adds Marines to fight in the later Arbiter levels, Quarantine Zone. It actually adds a bunch of Marines in your way, and it's really cool. Because
that's awesome.
The dynamic of fighting human enemies with human weapons and, like, Scorpion tanks and, like, Gauss Warthogs and stuff, it's really intense. It's neat as hell.
Yeah, I mean, and when we get into the Arbiter levels, I'll have more to say about that. But that's cool that they have that option, because that's another thing. Like I mentioned last episode, that now that these are all on PC, the modders can just kind of, like, just go for it and throw everything in there. But I do think that I think that the Earth levels live up to their to expectations, to their potential. The Scarab is kind of just like, compared to later appearances, it's pretty derpy, but it's still like a really fun fight. I like chasing it through the streets, and even though it's scripted, you know, taking out the rocket launcher and just wiping out the crew and everything, I think it's still fun.
They got 2 pieces of music from the Earth fight too. Mjolnir mix, obviously, when you're fighting the Scarab, Steve Vai rock guitar remix of the Halo theme, but also I forget what it's called. I don't think it's actually on the soundtrack, or it's part of a suite, but it's the music that plays when the hunters come out in Outskirts, when they bust through the door.
The part's sick. Yeah.
I get real Black Hawk Down vibes from that like whole level, and like especially that part and everything, and like I love that track.
With the fat bass line underneath it. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then when they break through the doors, it goes like bam.
Yeah, but I think that is part of one of the suites.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think those levels are terrific, and it all kind of builds up to the. I mean, I'm sure they had more planned for this, but the alien ship jumps into slip space inside the city, setting the stage for another game we'll talk about later. But they Master Chief and friends follow it, and then we cut back to our alien friend, who's been tortured and burned and all these different things, and
he's had a tough go.
He's had a rough couple days. Dragging him through the cells. They're considering cutting him up and feeding him to the other prisoners and all that stuff.
Why not toss him in with this lot? They could use the meat.
His flesh is seared just the way I like it.
Oh my god, I love the Arbiter levels, dude. That was the one thing I loved about the game, like immediately. Just the like visually, like the aesthetic, the atmosphere.
The world building is insane.
It took me a few years to mature. I mean, I liked the levels themselves. I just hated it. Like, I don't want to play as the bad guys. But then, like,
right.
Once my balls dropped, I was like, oh wait, this is cool.
Well, I'm glad. I thought, like, right off the bat, they were really clever in the way that they didn't have you fight humans. Because when I heard that you play as an elite, I'm like, so what does that mean? Do you fight humans? That's I don't know how I feel about that. And then
very cleverly.
Turns out you don't. Right? Yeah, exactly. You fight the heretics, then you fight in the quarantine zone and Sacred Icon. You fight just Sentinel.
Unless you dip into Nick's black market mods.
Yeah, no, I have yet to play that. Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. Like I'll try it out one day.
Don't do it right now though, because one of the patches that they put out for Halo 3 fucked up the mod's ability to work. So don't do it right now.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay, but I gotta say the quarantine zone is probably the most beautiful level I've ever played in a first-person shooter.
I think it's really cool that the premise of the Arbiter is just like, it's like a Suicide Squad thing where you got like we're gonna give you one chance to redeem yourself. We're gonna send you on these absolutely, like, there's no chance you'll ever survive missions.
The council will have their corpse.
Yeah, and they give him the sick armor, and it's terrific. And
it's
what your arm to do?
Yeah, it puts on his helmet first. He's like naked under. It makes no sense.
Elites have no dicks.
The first thing I'll do is put on the hat. Yeah, That's
what I would do if I were him.
No. Fair enough.
I really like the premise of those levels where you fly past the ruins of the first Halo. You go into the sort of the Cloud City gas giant. You get into some shenanigans there. I didn't really like. I was listening to the developer commentary on it. They were concerned about how people wouldn't be able to differentiate between the good and bad elites. I didn't really have a problem.
No,
they have different.
It's pretty easy.
The fact that
designs are pretty cool.
The fact that they flicker purple, helped a lot.
Yeah, different profiles, different shields. They initially were going to have all of them be hunters.
Yeah, no.
All of your guys or all of the enemies?
All of the enemies.
Oh Jesus.
They might have run out of fun like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cool couple level, because I think his levels start out so and then they get better and better. and the Chiefs kind of do the opposite in this game. And then that's where they introduce the Flood again. How do you guys feel about the Flood in this game?
I think it's a downgrade from the previous game.
Because it's just I think the thing about the Flood in the first game is it's like a holy shit moment. Like, oh, this is good. It totally turns the game upside down. But in Halo 2, it doesn't, because you can only be sort of surprised or impacted one time, and that already happened. Well, it's not like I don't like it, but I'm just because I mean the whole thing about horror elements is it's only scary once, right? Yeah, and then sort of. It's
not so much
this game.
Yeah, it's not so much that. I just think in the first game they just felt so much better to fight. Like the way they'd well, not to mention because the shotgun always felt much better to use. I think that was part of it. But
how you can blow them apart in this game. That's awesome.
I do like that.
Yeah, like when you can cut them into pieces.
Yeah.
This is their last resort.
And if you get the Sentinel beam, like the Sentinel beam is really good at burning them and dismembering them too and everything.
Nice world building there.
I think it doesn't help though that a lot of the human weapons have been nerfed quite a bit. The submachine gun doesn't have the punch of the assault rifle. The shotgun is not good, and
yes,
the Magnum is okay if you headshot with it, but I don't know.
Shotgun works if you're super up close. But other than that,
which is the video game logic of how shotguns work. But you can
I mean,
or you can take somebody out at 70 feet with a shotgun just fine.
Yeah, exactly. I really wish they didn't make it so close range.
But the majority of times you're fighting the Flood in this game, you're the Arbiter.
And
so
you have
he
Covenant
has
weapons.
The sword, and their weapons are much better for fighting them. I thought the impact is less pronounced, but I still thought that the environments and the suspense were still kind of scary, because you are seeing them from the Covenant's perspective instead, which is kind of interesting, and how they react to it, how they feel about them.
They are the only enemy the Covenant fear.
Yeah, I do love those those two Arbiter levels, how they're presented and kind of the lore of like where you're going. Like, oh, the heretics are hiding on this, gas mining station floating in Threshold's atmosphere, and I'm like,
as much as I love those two levels, I've always questioned the logistics of having like a base just like dangle from a string. I'm like who thought of that? Like,
well, I think because
the only way
that wasn't the original purpose of it, but then he chose it because he thought nobody would look there.
Well,
it's
also
like he wants to hide.
We shouldn't neglect that this is yet another consequence of the first game, is that the post credits of Halo 1, something else the Master Chief Collection doesn't do right. It cuts out the credits and the post credits and all that. You see Guilty Spark flying away from the wreckage of Halo in the first game, and basically what happens is he is reintroduced into the games at this point, where he has essentially told this heretic elite leader what Halo actually is, and he is basically trying to pull the wool off of everyone's eyes about what it actually is, and the Arbiter is being dispatched to silence him. But this is pretty crucial in that, number one, it collides Guilty Spark back with the main story, and number two, it kind of sets the Arbiter on a path of questioning their faith and their religion and what Halo actually does. And it's just a great, it's one of those things where this game really takes its time to establish the new characters and how they work into the story and like sort of the consequences of everyone's actions. And these levels are a great example of that. And it's very much, when you kind of go back and forth between the Chief and the Arbiter, you get like 2 levels apiece for a while, and they tend to, when you're ending the Earth levels, you kind of get a big it's like a very wow, that was intense. And then you kind of, when you start out as the Arbiter in these levels, it's a lot slower paced. You kind of build back up to this huge crescendo where you have to cut the cable, the station's gonna fall, and it's like crazy, and then you kind of get another breather, and that's when you get control of the Chief again, and you find another Halo, which Derek hates.
Well, I don't hate it. I like it. Like most things, I like it better in the remastered version. But just the way they come upon it, it's like that is another Halo. I feel like they just could have been
Halo 2.
Yeah, that's it. Like that might as well be the line. I feel like they could have gotten a bit more creative with the reveal of the second Halo. So that's just me.
I don't think that something really cool that I think I spoke with some of you about is that what they do in the first game is they set it up very subtle, like they leave the door open for something like this, where Guilty Spark says, oh, this installation has a range of whatever, but once the others follow suit, this galaxy will be devoid of life. So he's kind of preparing you that there's going to be more of some kind, and I accept this as a possible interpretation of that line. So, in essence, I think it was a fair play, and what I like about this game is that it not only kind of inverts the plot of the first game, I think it differentiates itself enough where the plot isn't like beat for beat. These first couple levels where you land on Halo are some of my favorites. Something that a friend and I were talking about is how cool it is that the Forerunner structures on this one are older. Like it's the same basic shape and structure, but they're made out of like stone and they're kind of turned into ruins. And there's a little bit more history because on this one, there has already been a flood outbreak, and they have essentially, like, the monitor of this ring, their Guilty Spark, has already been taken prisoner, and the best the Sentinels could do was kind of wall off a section of it and contain the spread of them, but they're still like, it's just kind of, it's adding this little differentiating piece of lore to this one to make you kind of understand that things are going to play out a little differently.
Yeah, because you meet like the Grave Mind, and you're like, "What the fuck is this thing?" And it's like, "Well, this is what happens when you let it." It's like they become this eventually.
But I think they were very smart to have all the Halo 1 parallels play out as the Arbiter. Like,
that's right. Because where the Halo, the Delta Halo arrival scene is fucking awesome when you go in as the ODSTs. You go in with them. Just kind of. It's a far cry from when you first land on Halo in the first game, and you're kind of, it's slower paced. You're
everyone's
dead. Everyone's dead. You're moving. You're going in there, guns blazing in this, and it's kind of it's very, we know what we're doing. I really like all the different, because it kind of captures that grassy plain field from the first game, but then you get the underwater section, you go through the ruins, and there's that like very kind of pirate ship almost scenario with the two gondolas that cross each other, and you gotta like blast each other. And
I love trying to time a rocket to hit it, and so when it goes by, everybody's already dead.
Yeah, it's ideal. And you can do the weapon juggling, which is something we didn't talk about, where you just kind of like pick up and drop
throw
a weapon, so you get a whole bunch on there.
Yeah,
and
just have a little cash. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I did that every time,
So fun.
Because they dropped them in the air. Right, yeah, they dropped them in the area before that, so what you gotta do is, you just shuttle them all over there so they're ready for you.
It helps you for the boss fight.
And you can arm the Marines too, so you can give them infinite ammo power weapons, and they'll just sit there and pick everybody off.
That's a new thing in this game too, is you can give them weapons and they'll have infinite ammo, and you punch the Prophet in the face, and it's great. It's glorious.
Those honor guards terrified me when I first played that too.
They're really tough.
That's
the real boss fight. It's trying to avoid them.
Yeah.
I mean, on his own, the Prophet of Regret's easy. You just board his little pod and punch him in the face until he dies.
Higher difficulties, he teleports around. Very well conceived boss battle, because he's not really the threat, as you said. It's really the honor guards and all his little supplicants.
Yeah.
And it's kind of at that point where you flash back to the Arbiter, and you immediately get the consequences of what just happened. And
So yet another thing he's suffering for as a result of Master Chief's actions.
And the prophets, the other prophets could have saved him, but they pull back their phantoms, and they basically, because the prophet of truth is taking out his other the competition, so he can be the sole leader. We're getting into what Derek was talking about, really spectacular. Another thing that you were talking about, how these levels kind of parallel the Halo 1, where you're going to the library, but they kind of just cut through it. It's like a shortcut. Like when I heard they we're going to the library, it's like, fuck, I don't want to do that again. But most of it takes place outside, and in vehicles, and it's kind of exploring the surrounding area. And a little Easter egg that is an unintentional kind of backwards Easter egg is when you open up the wall to go through. There's a little handprint logo on the control panel, and it's a 6-fingered hand. And then when we finally meet a Forerunner in Halo 4, he's got 6 fingers, and that's a nice
touch.
Yeah. So I like that a lot.
The Spec Ops commander at one point, I think it's actually in Sacred Icon once you get through the initial quarantine zone or whatever. But
yeah,
when he lands, he has that like super motivating speech. The elites are so cool.
I think that level is like, it's a very representative of how because I think that level is supposed to be even longer, but I think it's the most representative of like, it's an absolute like war zone. Like there's like everyone is fighting everyone. It's kind of like the 2 betrayals level in the previous game. And they start throwing like the big sentinels at you, the enforcers. They can pick up vehicles and crush them. The Flood can drive vehicles in this game. It's like insane.
Yeah, like the Flood in concept are just terrifying. Like their sole motivation is basically just to eat. They're just hungry. They're not even self-aware, but they're smart enough to use guns and operate machinery. It's fucking terrifying.
Well, that's something we see in this game too, is that they can even evolve to fly ships. They take control of an Amberclad. Great, I mean, incredible battle scene. One of the sort of the fever pitches of that, and then
it's like they're making up for the library that everybody hated in the first one.
Exactly.
Like, all right, you hated the big Flood level in the last one, fine.
So yeah, you just have a little part at the end where you're walking through that one room where it looks like the library did in the first game. That's all you need. And
instead of going through 4 floors, Miranda Keys just kind of repels over.
Yeah.
And
it's like, wait, I have a rope.
Yeah. Why didn't Master Chief do that in the first game? Because it's right fucking there. Oh, that's true. But come on.
It's a tentacle in the original game, and it's some kind of wire in the anniversary. But she
it's like
shows us all how it's done.
Or something.
Really cool, kind of one of those moments where when I was first playing, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen when the Arbiter meets Miranda and Johnson, and they have a little fight. And it's pretty engaging because it's like, oh no, my 2 friends are fighting. Like I don't know what to do.
But at least it's a cutscene. Like, could you imagine if it was like a boss fight, like where you're the Arbiter fighting Johnson and Miranda?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
Pretty awesome. He subdues them. You're betrayed by tartar sauce, the great brute chieftain. And that kind of sort of sets up the end game, where the Gravemind, the Flood Central Intelligence, has Arbiter and Master Chief in his grasp, and it plays out like a scene from The Wall or something, where you're having all these different, like he has the flood infected prophet, and he has the old monitor, and they're all just kind of like, you're getting basically the gist of how the rest of the series, the trilogy, is gonna play out, because he's explaining to the Arbiter, like, what's really happening, and
yeah, it's like your whole life is a lie.
he's using all his different like puppets to voices
yes,
the truth, which is great.
Such an amazing scene.
But it's really super well written, and then he kind of just dispatches you on sort of your final missions. And something else I love about that is that when you're doing those last couple boards, it oscillates. It's instead of like 2 and 2, it kind of just goes back and forth because you're building momentum towards the end of the game, and it's really kind of making it clear that
it's a play off of how all the Halo 1 parallels, or when you're playing as the Arbiter, the only times at which you get to experience those in cutscene locations, like the Arbiter's cutscenes, is when you're playing as Master Chief. Like when you get, it's amazing. Like when you're in the mausoleum.
So genius. It's
unbelievable. As the Arbiter, you only experience it in cutscenes. But in gameplay, you're Master Chief.
Finally get to see it. That level, the first level, is a little long, but it's really cool to see the different kind of configurations of the enemies fighting each other as the Civil War kind of breaks out. And then that's when I believe the Flood show up on High Charity. You get to see them kind of, and that I think is a much scarier and more effective version of what you eventually see in Halo 3, where they take over the city like very, very quickly, and the atmosphere is really fucking scary. And of course, that's Master Chief's last mission, where he gets on board the ship and they take off.
He leaves Cortana behind.
Yeah. Something interesting about that is the original version of that cutscene. She says, if things go bad, if they're going to activate Halo, I'll blow up the ship's fusion reactor. And as she does that, she's holding her hand behind her back and she's crossing her fingers. And it foreshadows that's what you do when you're lying. It foreshadows that she doesn't actually do it. The fucking thing almost goes off and she doesn't do it. So, in essence, they're planning the idea that maybe she's a little more interested in self-preservation and maybe negotiating with the Flood during that like post-credits. And that's kind of where I thought it was going, is that she may not be totally pure of intention. So they kind of like they leave you with that little lingering, I don't know. I don't think they included it in the anniversary version, unfortunately, but it's a nice little detail.
I never noticed it.
It's pretty cool. And then you get into the Arbiter's last couple boards where you I think it's very emotionally effective that you're just fucking tear-assing through the brutes and just wiping them out as revenge for like the genocide that they attempted.
But like
those are very cool.
Like the scene where he gets dropped on Delta Halo and like the sad music is playing. It's such a cathartic moment because you can see the sadness in his face that he's learning now that his whole life was a lie, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's like
we're setting him up for this.
Yeah, and it's him having to survive out there while coming to grips with all of this.
There is one very goofy moment where I think they're trying to. There's a corpse on the ground of an elite. And it makes it look, there's like a little voice line, and it's like he's talking to you as he's dying, but
I think I remember that.
Clearly not moving.
Yeah.
Pretty funny, but those levels are great. I think it builds to an exceptional climax. You link up with your half-faced Spec Ops commander buddy.
Yes.
And then you run into Sergeant Johnson, and he seizes control of a Scarab, which is a beautiful, perfect point A to point B. We started out this game running in terror from this thing and trying to find a way to take it down, and we're ending this game empowered, united, and using it against our common enemy. And it's so perfect, it's so brilliant. It's one of those little things that people don't think about, but they should, because it's a nice little detail. And it's they intended a whole extra act to tack onto this already formidable, really long game. But that's where it ends. It ends with the boss battle with Tartarus, which we've talked about. They intended the game to end on Earth after that. The Arbiter would show up and help Master Chief, and it would end the entire series. They have concept art of the big structure in the ground from Halo 3 was supposed to be the end of the whole thing. But they ran out of time, of course, and we get the Sir finishing this fight cliffhanger. And I remember I remember hearing about it before I even played the game, is that everyone was like rip shit that the game ended that way.
Well, I just don't like how it completely cut to black. I feel like while the music swelled at that point, it should have just been a final.
Afterwards is kind of weird.
Yeah, well, I think it should have been as the music swelled at that point. It should have just been a one last shot of the Forerunner ship just heading toward Earth, and then like once the music cuts, then you cut to black.
It's a little goofy, but it does I think it achieved what the only option they could take was like, all right, let's set up the next one. Let's
Well, yeah, I don't mind a cliffhanger ending at all. I just the execution of it, I always had issues with.
Yeah, it's a little weird. So that's the end of one of the most formidable stories in this series, and before we get into final thoughts here, I just want to discuss. There's a significant amount of cut content. We'll be here all day if we talk about it all. But the Flood Juggernaut was awesome. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's really cool looking. It's enormous. It would have been. There's actually voice lines where elites are like warning you about it and stuff.
Yeah, you showed me those. There's like a database of dialogue. Yeah, dialogue they didn't use. But it wasn't the concept of the Juggernaut that once you killed one, like the Flood within a certain radius would all die, which would have made no sense. So I think that was one of the reasons they cut it.
I don't know much about that, but just it was supposed to be like a hunter-esque Flood
form.
Which
well, no, I've seen the videos.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks cool.
That and a great, cool story direction that I can't stop thinking about that I wish they had implemented later on in the series is the project. The director, he had this idea that Miranda Keyes was going to betray you at a certain point because she did not trust you insofar as what happened on the first Halo ring with her dad. And she's basically like just kind of losing faith in the Master Chief over the course of the game. And at a certain point, you were going to come back, and she was going to have met with the prophets and be doing a deal with them, essentially, where, okay, let's solve all our problems here. And essentially, what was going to happen was they would get rid of their demon. The Master Chief is called the Demon in this game, and what they were going to do is they were going to solder a nuclear bomb to his armor and then shove him down a hole where the Gravemind was living and just like basically kill two birds with one stone. It's fucking awesome. And I really wish that there was something like, because it's like such a fucking like left turn. And it would have been an because I think Miranda Keyes is kind of a one-note character, and it would have made her a little bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got. It's my favorite game in the series. I could fucking talk to you about it for days, so I won't say anything else other than it just fucking owns. It's amazing. It's unbelievable.
You realize it's just one of those things that gets better with time. Yeah, every new time
you think about it, the more
right.
you play it.
The more you play it, like you keep noticing, you keep learning new things.
Yeah, and to say nothing of the multiplayer, I think one of the finest experiences of the whole saga. Most of the maps are incredible.
Yeah.
I have nary a bad word to say besides some minor gripes here and there.
That's one I never really got too deep.
I was gonna say, like, as a part of my final thought, because I didn't play this game when it was big, like in 2004, 2005. Like, I only played it for the first time a couple of months ago, so I kind of missed like all that hype with Halo 2. What I mean, again, like, we can't really say it enough. Where this was another how to get a game that made Xbox Live popular was this, right? Because everybody, if you're playing Xbox Live in 2004, you're playing Halo 2.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's so rare to get the 1-2 punch in terms of like innovation. Like, that's insane that they did it again, especially under such constricting circumstances where Microsoft is really like, just fucking put it out.
Right.
Yeah. I unfortunately I never got too deep into the online of Halo 2. I never had Xbox Live. In fact, my first foray into Xbox Live was with Xbox One. I never had it for 360. Yeah, I know. I never played Halo Online until the Master Chief Collection. I mean, I played it online here or there, but
That's crazy to me.
I know, yeah. So like, I would always play like local multiplayer
Sure.
with friends, and Halo 2 was the one I was so unbelievably bad at. Like I'm okay at Halo 1, Halo 2. It's like one of those things. Everybody has it in life. It's one of those things I'll never get good at. So for me, it's that and Super Smash Bros. I'll always be terrible. But so whenever I play online now, it's Combat Evolves.
Sure.
Yeah, even though they only have 2v2, it's still just for gameplay. That one will always be my favorite. But when it comes to like story or just scale, I'd say overall, if I had to pick which one out of the series was the best, I'd pick Halo 2.
Hell yeah.
Easily. That it is the staple of that franchise. It's
the fulcrum upon which the entire story stands.
Yes, it is the Empire Strikes Back of the Halo franchise.
Yeah.
Nick, did you want to give us your final thought?
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, just to summarize it overall, I would say if somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, I can only play one Halo game. Which one is it going to be?" I would probably say 2.
Yeah.
Even though I think I personally, for like really tiny, like detailed, nerdy reasons, prefer 1 in a lot of ways.
Sure.
2 makes a lot of really good improvements. It has a really tight, cool, honestly, like incredible story in terms of what they accomplish with fairly simple means, and also just like what they do with, expanding the lore by having a different protagonist for half the game that gives you insight into the enemy that you've been fighting, and just the amount that they accomplish in a fairly short, first-person shooters usually have fairly short campaigns, so the amount that they accomplish in the time that they have, and to know that they didn't even have the time to do what they really wanted to do is like insane. But there are some things I disagree with in terms of like choices of nerfing weapons and like sound design and things like that. But with regard to almost everything else, like the levels, the story, the new additions, the dual wielding, the mechanical upgrades, I adore Halo 2. And if you ask me on any day, 1 or 2, my answer is going to change every day. They're neck and neck. I love them.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Halo 1 really has on Halo 2 is this is all subjective. This is just me. I always thought the combat felt better. Like I mentioned earlier, the Flood felt better to fight in the first one. I think part of that is there's like when it comes to the infection forms and the carrier forms, there's this. In the first game, they had this sort of pop when you defeated them that you really felt like you'd like really see them inflate, and you really felt, that burst.
The AoE was better.
In Halo 2, it wasn't as impactful.
Sure.
They
are objectively, they play very different, so everyone is entitled to kind of preferring one or the other for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think we're about to come up against the max. So, Beppe, if you have anything else you want to say about your favorite game, and then send us off, we're maxed
your
out.
Little game there. What do you play your little Halos there?
Yeah.
No, I have nothing to say except play this game.
Yeah, and
it's one of the greatest
Beppe,
games ever made.
Beppe, what do we like to say on this show? Because we're about to be maxed out for time. You have exactly 2 minutes.
We like to say, can we all get over the goddamn Halo 3 already?
Yeah.